So in the previous movie, we learned how to copy spreadsheets when you have editorial privileges. Now, just to review in terms of the structure here, the spreadsheet can stand alone by itself, and you can link the URL for that spreadsheet directly to the website. So for example, if I was on a particular spreadsheet, I would simply copy this URL and make a link from that to the website. But the forms are a little different. The form is associated with the spreadsheet because it has to have some place to dump the data. But you have to copy the form separate from the spreadsheet with the new form of Google Docs. So let's say that we went to an activity here where we had a form. So you may recall that when we did the hurricane activity, that it had a form associated with it. So after they had went on to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration page and tracked the hurricanes, each student was putting in the data from their particular hurricane into the table. So I should say into the form. So here's the form where they can include their name and all the specific information about the individual hurricane. But the question is, where does this data end up? So you'll notice that if you were the owner of the form, there's going to be an edit this form option. That'll only appear if you're logged into your account. And so if you clicked on edit this form, then you can see again the typical editing tools and so forth at the top. But the one that's most significant for us right here is under File to add collaborators. Now, for some reason, they titled it differently. Rather than having the share button over here, it's under add collaborators, but they may change that like they do other things. So keep a focus on the concepts, not on the specifics. So in this case right here, we could change it just like we did before, and we could say anyone with the link can edit. And that's exactly the way I'm going to set up these things so that you can copy them yourself. However, you could also make it private, and only the people with the editorial privileges could view it. And so just to remember that we had the contacts that we'd made in our Gmail list right here. And so we could take that information, and once we're again editing that form, we could take that group, or any other group for that matter, and make them collaborators. So adding a collaborator is the same thing as sharing, just different terminology, the way that they've set it up. So in this case, I'm just going to put in again the same link, and I can say, okay, all those 11 people should be able to edit, and now anyone in that group can edit. Now for your sake, I'm going to change this up here, and I'm just going to say anyone with the link to that form can also edit it. So this will be anonymous, but just like before, when you come up with the form, the first thing you're going to want to do is to make a copy. So I'm going to take the form here and I'm going to say make a copy of that form. And then as long as you are working with the copy of that form, as you can see coming up right here, it says copy of form, then you don't need to recreate all of the resources and information that's in here. And this is particularly helpful if you have a complex survey like this. You don't want to have to start from scratch. Now you can edit out different things. So for example, this is, kind of a useless question in some sense, like what's the gender of the hurricane's name? Well, if you don't want that one, you can just say delete it. And you're working on the copy of it, and so it's not going to affect the original. Again, you can add different questions and so forth of your own. So this form now, you can say to set up to accept responses or to turn it off. Right now, nobody can enter onto this form. But if I turn it back on, then anybody who has the link to the live form, which is accessed right here, if they have the link to this live form, then they can edit it. So what you'd want to do is you want to take this URL, and you could copy that URL and put it directly into your particular document. So if this was the document that I was working on and I wanted to make a link here, I could simply click the edit tool and let's say I wanted to put something like this: enter your data in the form, and then I could title this, make the link, and put in a web address, because now this is an external document, and you click. And so what's going to happen when you save that is some student will click on this and say, I'd like to enter my data. They can click on enter the data, and indeed they're going to be going to the live form where they can actually put their own results in there. Now, that's one way to do it, and I'm just going to edit that link out right now before I forget, so that's no longer there. Alternatively, you could make a separate page into which would be into your website, which would include that form. So to do that, where the form is actually embedded in your page, I will just create a new page here, and I'm going to put this one under Hurricane Cyclones because I want it to be in the same spot. It'll be a normal one, but I'll put here form. So this now will be a link. It'll appear at the bottom of the page under which I inserted it. And right now, if I say I'd like to insert and go over to Drive and say I'd like to insert a form from Drive, it'll list all your various different forms, including the one you've done most recently, copy of hurricanes. So if you select that and insert it, and then I'm just going to change the width to blank so it'll go full width. When you save that, now that form is embedded directly into your Google site, and when the person's done, they can simply hit the submit button at the bottom, and they will never leave your site. And so that's a good way to design things. So again, that's how to duplicate forms. So it's very important to check to see if the form you have is the original form or a copy of the form. Again, this one right here is the original. It says hurricanes. So to make a copy, you would simply click over here like before under the file menu, because it's a file function, and you'd say make a copy. Once that copy comes up, you're going to see all of this data over here. It's basically the same form. However, it's going to a different location. Notice that there's 0 respondents to this one. By contrast, if we were to click on the original one, it says 15 respondents. So if this one, I view the responses, I can see, yes, indeed, there's a lot of data already in here. If I however look at the copy and I view the responses, it says 0, then there's no data present. Now what that does, it sets up a spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is called Copy of Hurricanes, Interpreting the Data, and that's integrally linked to the form. So by copying the form and making sure you have a copy of the form, it'll generate your own unique spreadsheet. So you now own the form and you own the spreadsheet, and the key thing for you to do is to make links to those as necessary. So if you wanted the data now from this form to be linked to your website, you would simply copy the URL of this, say copy, and then you would paste it into your actual web page, which is in a different location. So hopefully that makes sense. You want to make sure you always have a copy of the form, not the original form. If you decide to change the locations of where you want that to go, as long as it says copy of over here, you can click under responses and you can say change response destination. And by doing this, you can specify either a new spreadsheet or a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet, and all the subsequent data will go to that point. Okay, so that's kind of wraps up in terms of how to copy a form. First, you should be made editor of that form, and again, that can be done either individually or by granting public access. Okay, so right now it's private. If I change that there to anyone with the link, can also edit, then essentially it's public as long as you have the link, and then everybody can make it as they deem necessary. Or I can say, in this case, put in my mail group again, as we've done a number of times before, and then all the people in that group will now be able to edit, and we can make it private just to those people and track what's going on. Okay, so your activity right now is to go ahead and try copying the hurricane form and linking it to the hurricane website which you've previously copied.